Comedy Film Nerds Podcast.
This movie is Roman J. Israel, Esquire. Now, before you tell me about this movie, I have to say, Graham, the first question I want to ask is, what was the story of this movie? Because when we were watching the trailers, they told two completely different stories and timelines. Like, what was the actual movie?
Yes. And that's the problem with this movie. And here's some trivia that explains everything what I'm about to go into.
Okay.
So after the premiere at the 2017 Toronto International Film Festival, the director Dan Gilroy and Denzel Washington decided to restructure and refocus parts of the narrative, which resulted in the removal of 12 minutes of footage. And the director said a very high-end test screening, and of course everyone was happy with the final cut. Which I don't know what those 12 minutes were. Here's the problem with, first I'll say this. Denzel Washington he's a fine actor.
Right.
And to watch Denzel, who's usually plays the tough guy, the badass, the man in charge, to play this kind of awkwardly dude. I saw an interview with him. He researched Asperger's. So he's playing a guy, sort of a high-function Asperger's person.
Right.
Who just is brilliant. Like, he's memorized all of the penal codes. You know what I mean? Like, there's a scene where he's in this law firm and they're just like, hey, Roman, 26.9.A. And he's like, oh, that's a failure to stop. Like he reads it off and it's like, wow. Right. So he's sort of he's a savant in that sense.
It's like a legal Rain Man.
Yeah, he's a... Yeah. That's what they should have renamed this movie. Legal Rain Man. And then they go play blackjack and win a bunch of money. So there's some great scenes. And so the crux of the movie is he's this sort of lifelong activist, and he's worked for he's a partner in this law firm, and they sort of, because of his Asperger's, he says fucked up shit to people and like insults them when he doesn't realize it. So they always kind of kept him. He does the research in the office, and his partner litigates in court, right?
Right, because you can't put someone like that up in litigating in front of a jury.
No, or a judge or anything like that. So his partner gets sick and is in the hospital, and so now he's got to go, and he just can't help himself. Like, he literally can't stop himself from... So the dilemma, and the thing that's in the trailer, one of the two trailers, is like there's this moral or ethical dilemma that he's confronted with and how he deals with that. Now that to me initially was like, oh, the second trailer that came out more focused on that. I saw an interview with Denzel Washington where he was talking about the moral quandary, and I was like, well, this sounds really enticing to me. Somebody that's lived a pretty moral and ethical life and has been an activist. Like, this Roman character is like, he was an activist in the 70s and like he's helped win all these things, and so that sounds intriguing to me. But then the movie just goes all over the place and it's uneven, and there's the fact that they had to cut 12 minutes out of this. I would take more time out of this movie.
Oh, okay.
And then they just do stuff where they introduce things, and then like they introduce this the female character, and I want to bring up her name because she's really fantastic, right? Carmen Ejogo, right? And she's an English actress, and she's been in, she was in Selma, she was in one of the Purge movies, she was an Alien, she's been in Fantastic Beasts. But they introduce her as this woman that runs this, like, for this non-for-profit, fight the power group, and he's looking for work.
Because that was in one of the trailers too. Like, there was a rally that he was at.
Yeah.
Telling it was how he was telling, how come the men are sitting and then there's women standing.
Yeah. So there's that scene where he goes to speak to things. She he walks in and just says, I could help your company and do this and that. And they're just like, who's this crazy guy walking in off the street? And then she does some research and goes, oh, wow, he's been a part of the movement since like the 70s. Like, this guy's the man. And then he does that thing. He said that where he's like, well, "How come the sisters are standing, the brother?"
Right.
And then that starts the thing, and you know, he totally puts his foot in his mouth, and he doesn't get the younger generation. And there's this whole, it's very kind of awkward, but it's really helpful. It's a great character exposition scene.
Even as you're describing it, the story is completely convoluted.
Yes, that's the problem. And then after this, there's this moment with this homeless guy in the street, and how Roman reacts is so impressive to this woman, and you're like, oh wow, is something going to happen romantically? Maybe, but just this relationship is going to get really flushed out, and she's a fine actress, and we're gonna, nope, don't see her until way later in the movie, and just shit like that. So it's so uneven, you know. He might get a nomination just because he's Denzel and he does a great job,
Right.
But man, it's so. I walked out of there going, boy, was this just missed the mark? And this 12 minutes shit tells me, the question we had after watching two trailers show two totally different movies.
Right.
Does that mean that the movie's uneven? The answer is yes. Yeah. And that's the problem. If you want to see fine acting, some acting scenes, I would recommend it for those reasons, but it could have been so much more. I just didn't know what it was. Like,
right.
The ethical and then Colin Farrell, and I saw this with a friend of mine, and you know, I was like, he's okay. He's just a good look. He's good looking. That's why he gets all these parts. You know what I mean? Like, he's not horrible,
right.
but there's some scenes in there where he starts kind of wanting to be more ethical. He's this big shark lawyer and wants to blah blah blah, and Roman's partner like spoke at his
part
law
of the firm, right?
Yeah. Well, no, his firm closes, and then Roman gets hired by Colin Farrell's firm.
I
right?
see. Okay.
And you start to see Colin Farrell start to change. Like, maybe we should be more ethical and not just go for the money, and we should do more pro bono work and everything. But like a more skilled actor we would have seen an arc versus there's just this guy with nice hair talking.
Right.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's a bummer.
That's a shame.
Get the Blu-ray, watch all 5 versions, a la Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, there's the director's cut, the editor's cut, the high-end test screening
Yeah,
cut.
there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, you know,
All right.
that's it.
Well, getting heads across the